And I believe, at least in Cambridge, with the History of Modern Languages course, I know that you chose Spanish after doing Spanish A level, but that you can do the HML course, History of Modern Languages course, without having done a languages A level, right?
Yes, you can. Ab initio, they call it. So just taking up a language from scratch. I think in regular MML degrees, you can also do one language post A level and one ab initio. But yeah, I think two people who do ab initio languages. So one does history in Portuguese and another does history in Spanish from scratch.
Um, Hello everyone, welcome to Cambridge from the Inside. We're here with a new guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Kareece and I study history and Spanish at Trinity Hall.
Nice. So today we're going to be talking about the History and Spanish course, and more broadly, the History and Modern Languages course, which I believe is a recent course in Cambridge.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So Chris, how did you come about choosing history and Spanish when choosing which degree to study?
I think just having a passion for both of them, I feel like it provided the perfect opportunity to sort of combine the two. And, why pick one if you can just do both things that you really enjoy? So, yeah, more or less.
What A levels did you do? Don't mind me asking.
So I did history, Spanish, economics, and an EPQ, which is interesting. I feel like a lot of people feel a lot of pressure to sort of do the right A levels for their course, but in a lot of courses, there's a lot of leeway with kind of what you do. Like, for instance, I know a lot of people who do HSPS that did things like maths. And so there's really no sort of direct path, I'd say, unless your course has specific requirements in terms of.
So were you thinking about history and Spanish before you chose your A levels, or were you thinking about other degrees as well alongside history and Spanish?
I don't think I thought about degrees much when I was choosing my A levels. It was just sort of a natural progression. And then I had those A levels, thought, what can I do with them? And yeah.
Nice. And I believe, at least in Cambridge, with the History of Modern Languages course, I know that you chose Spanish after doing Spanish A level, but that you can do the HML course, History of Modern Languages course, without having done a languages A level, right?
Yes, you can. Ab initio, they call it. So just taking up a language from scratch. I think in regular MML degrees, you can also do one language post A level and one ab initio. But yeah, I think two people who do ab initio languages. So one does history in Portuguese and another does history in Spanish from scratch.
So these are people who did a history A level and a couple of other A levels, none of them in languages, and now are doing history at Cambridge and a language where they're learning it from scratch.
Yes, so they started them in first year. And yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think when I remember looking at that in the course, I think that's just like, it's a really cool thing that the university offers, an opportunity for students to learn a language from scratch despite not taking it to A level. So with HML, how have you found the course so far?
It's really good, really enjoyable course. There's a lot of sort of leeway to explore what you want to explore. I feel like with history especially, I was given the impression that I'd have to study certain things and be really restricted to like British history or ancient history, but that's just not the case at all. So yeah, I think it's important that people know, because especially when I was applying, I was sort of told that, this is Cambridge and you'll have to study what they want you to study.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a lot of diversity within the course itself.
So what kind of like parts of history, like what different types of history can you choose from in the HML course?
So in first year, there is a global history paper. I didn't take it, but there is one that focuses on sort of Africa and I think parts of India. Yeah, so there is like a broad scope. Right now, I'm doing modern US history, and that's a really modern paper, and it comes up all the way to sort of Trump's first election. And so, yeah, there's definitely different sort of avenues you can go down, whether it's more ancient, more modern. I also do a research project on sort of nations and nationalism, which is really interesting and broad in scope. So.
Oh, nice. That's really cool. So just what more specifically, like what courses have you chosen and like thinking about continuing with?
Yeah, like I said, the nations and nationalism one is so interesting. And we do, like my last seminar last week was on sort of colonial administration in the Sudan. And so, yeah, as I said, I'm sort of saying the same thing over and over, but there's a lot of leeway to sort of pursue your own interest within history, I'd say. And then on the Spanish side, I'm currently doing modern Latin American literature and culture as a paper, which isn't as historical as it sounds. It's more sort of literature oriented, but that's really good as well.
Nice. What for anyone who's like interested in Spanish literature or thinking about Spanish, like what what authors and what kind of literature do you cover in that paper you're doing?
Sort of a lot of revolutionary authors. There are different sort of supervision topics, and the one I'm doing right now is charting revolution. There's one on sort of dictatorship, and yeah, it sort of looks at mostly 20th century Latin America and the events that unfolded there.
Nice. So that's quite interesting because that's in in one of your Spanish papers. But so do the two overlap quite a bit, history and the modern language side?
I would say it depends on if you want them to. Like I personally like to keep the two spheres quite separate, and so my history is not sort of connected to Latin America, but there are papers that you can do which focus on Latin America in different regions. So yeah, there is option.
Nice. And I imagine, and for those who want to do this, I guess like doing a language alongside history enables you to look at texts in their original language if they weren't written in English.
Yes, of course, yeah. I think that's one of the best parts, or one of the things that sort of highlights how the two complement each other, the fact that you can access these Spanish primary sources, and there's just a level of nuance that you can sort of understand that you wouldn't be able to if you had accessed the text in English. Yeah.
Nice, yeah. I think that's really cool. I think that's really cool for someone who wants to study history but also make sure that they can read text in their original language. So for HML, and if anyone doesn't know what I mean by HML, it's just a shorthand for history and modern languages. How do students learn? Is it through lectures or seminars?
So there's a mixture. I'd say history is mainly lecture oriented. There are some seminars, but especially in first year, I had mostly lectures. And then for Spanish, it's a bit different. I used to say that there are a lot more moving parts in the sense that you have sort of language supervisions to develop your oral skills, and then you have translation classes, and that's on top of your sort of lectures and regular supervision. So there's a lot more sort of bits and bobs that you have to keep on top of it. Yeah.
Nice. And how have you so would you have supervisions in both history and Spanish?
Yes.
And how have you found those?
Good. Yeah, I love my history supervisions, especially because they're one-on-one. I feel like a lot of people are intimidated by the one-on-one sort of supervision structure, but they're just so enriching, and you really get to go into sort of the essay you've produced and derive a lot from it. I always come out from a supervision having a much more cemented sort of understanding of what I've written on, which is interesting because I've already read so much and written an essay. And then in that 1 hour, I just come out, knowing so much more. Yeah.
Nice. In terms of how you've benefited from the course, would you say, what would you lose if the supervision part of the course wasn't there, if you see what I mean?
I feel like they provide a space for consolidation. I feel like if you didn't have a supervision, you'd definitely be left to your own devices. And I'm not sure that that works for everyone. I feel like some people are intimidated by supervisions, but for some people it just works. And it's a form of, it's a chance to consolidate your learning and discuss any questions you might have, which is really important, I think.
Yeah, and they happen every week, so I guess it's like a consistent routine of supervisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So because obviously, or maybe it's not obvious to the viewers. You could either study history on its own or take the MML course where you choose 2 languages. One of them could be from ab initio. But with HML, what's the course structure like, and kind of how much of each of those 2 degrees do you have to do, if you see what I mean? Is it still the same amount as 1 degree, or is it more?
I'd say, well, this is quite a controversial opinion. I'd say it's around the same amount as 1 degree, maybe a tad more, but it's not a terrible, terrible amount. I feel like before I came, a lot of people told me that you're doing 2 degrees at once. That's not the case. Maybe 1.5, but not 2. It is manageable. And in first year, I'd say it's quite 50-50. But in second year, there's more of a give and take. Like, I think in second year, I do slightly more history than I do Spanish, just because that's what I've chosen to do. But you can equally do more language if you wish.
Yeah, I think I saw that in the course structure. So in the second year, just to clarify, it's up to the students to how much they want to lean over to one of history or their language.
Yeah. So you do, well, in second year, I do 3 papers, and 1 is Spanish, 2 are history. But I could have done 2 Spanish, 1 history. It was personal choice.
Nice. And how does that then work with the year abroad and the 4th year? Do students specialise, or do they continue with both?
You continue with both. I think it's more or less the same. You sort of lean into whichever one you wish to, but you still do both of them at the same time.
Nice. And with HML, do students have a chance to do any dissertations?
Yes. So history, there's definitely a dissertation. I'm planning to do a dissertation for history, in fact. And then for languages, I'm not too sure, but I think you can also do a language dissertation.
Nice. And we've kind of alluded to it, but I assume the 3rd year, you get to do a year abroad. Do you have any ideas of?
Yes. It's still sort of in the works, and things are still yet to be approved by the faculty. But I plan to study in Cuba for half of it, and then for the other half, I want to work, preferably in Spain, but I'll see how complicated visa processes and things are.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, wow. Cuba. Damn. That sounds so cool. How did the idea come about with Cuba?
Cuba, I think I've done a lot of US history, and I feel like there is a link between the 2. I feel like that's where it stems from, and sort of learning about the opposition to Cuba, I guess. It would be nice to experience and to see firsthand a different way of living that the West is sort of opposed to, I guess.
Nice, yeah, it'd be really cool to be able to live amongst Cubans and live amongst I don't know what you call the Spaniards. That is or live in Spain and kind of compare the 2 cultures. I think that sounds really cool. So am I right in thinking that you've kind of the Cuba placement is kind of confirmed, but the Spain one is still on the works?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah, that's Brexit for you. Nice. And what other so in terms of other students in your cohort, what other things are people doing for their year abroad?
There is so much you can do. I feel like the faculty sort of gives you a guide, and then you can sort of do what you want with that. I know somebody who's going to volunteer in Brazil
Mm.
for a while. A lot of people study, so you can either study or work, or volunteer. So yeah, I know someone going to study in Spain, in Seville, I think. People going to Argentina to teach English, for instance. Yeah, there's so much you can do.
Nice. And was there anything else you were considering other than Cuba and going to Spain when you were like working out what you want to do for your year abroad?
Yeah. In fact, I really wanted to do, well, I had my heart set on this British Council sort of placement in Colombia, but I'm 2 months shy of the sort of age requirements for to sort that out. So that was a shame, but yeah.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I guess it's better than being too old because then I guess you could do it at a later date,
Yeah.
potentially. And for your for the year abroad, are there any academic requirements either with what you're doing in placement, or do you still have to continue work that has to do with your HML degree?
So there is a year abroad project. For history, I think you're sort of left alone, and it's not related. But there is a year abroad project in which I think you do either a translation project or a mini sort of dissertation. And I'm leaning towards the mini dissertation. But
Nice. Because I think for a lot of prospective students who are considering HML, they want to know like what a typical day like looks like. So, like what in a normal weekday in the middle of term, what would your day look like as a HML student?
so in one day, maybe one lecture, under supervision, either on history or Spanish. And then usually sort of a little class, like either a translation class, a history seminar, or another Spanish class, like a language supervision. It really depends on the day, but yeah, on the whole, that's
Nice. Do you prefer the history supervisions or like the Spanish ones?
I'm not sure my supervisors would like to know the answer to that one. I do have a preference.
I mean, it's fine.
yeah.
Everyone has a preference. Norms have a preference.
Yeah, I do.
If-
That's as far as I'm going.
Okay, well, what are the pros and cons to both the history supervisions and the MML ones, the Spanish ones?
I think you derive the same sort of benefit from
Yeah.
both in the sense that you get to explore your essay. Yeah, I wouldn't say there are cons. The only con is if you're sort of underprepared and then you have to go in and defend a piece of work you're not entirely happy with. But yeah.
Yeah, that does sound tough. And so if anyone, I mean myself including this, I don't. What does a translation class or supervision look like? Do you do the translations there, or do you do it beforehand and then discuss your work?
So it depends. Some weeks you'll do them as homework and then the teacher sort of marks them, and then you do something else in class. And other weeks you'll do them in class sort of as a group, as a collective effort. But so yeah, it really depends on the week. But there's often a homework task to do a translation, and then you'll get individual feedback emailed to you on that.
Nice. And is it those same classes where you're practicing the oral skills as well, or is that a separate class?
That is a separate class. They also vary between years. So in first year and second year, you do have oral supervisions in groups of, I'd say three to four, weekly. But then in second year, we also have something called SPMD, which is where we look at sort of the media, focus a lot on Spanish media, looking at a lot of TED Talks and things like that, which is really interesting. So
Nice.
it varies.
That does sound really cool. And like in your free time, like when you're not studying, like do you do any societies, or what do you get up to?
Yes. So I am one of the co-presidents actually of the History Society here at Trinity Hall. So we sort of organise talks. We have a few talks on each term where we have guest speakers come in and sort of give a talk on their topic of interest or a new work they're publishing in the evening. And then aside from that, I'm also on June Event Committee this year. June Event is sort of the celebration that we have at the end of the year. Really fun. Everyone gets involved.
It's like a ball, right?
Yeah, it is. It's just a bit, we just call it a June event because Trinity Hall's a bit smaller. And so, yeah, some colleges have events, some have balls, some have garden parties. But what else am I part of? I also do BGS, which is Cambridge University Black Girl Space. And so I'm campaigns officer for that. And so I sort of work with charities and sort of sorting out the causes we're fundraising for each term, which is really good.
Nice. What causes have you been fundraising so far?
So last term we fundraised with Hassana, which is a charity that works sort of providing refuge for Black femmes who have been victims of domestic abuse or violence. And then this term we have a braiding workshop coming up. So the last time we did a dance workshop. This time we have a braiding workshop in a partnership with Leanne Perro, who is a sort of breast cancer survivor, I believe. And yeah, that's coming up, I think, in 2 weeks. So,
nice. Yeah. Wow. That's 3 societies and a joint honours degree.
I mean, there is time. There is time, yeah. I feel like you have to know how much you can manage. Yeah, but there is definitely time to sort of do what interests you and do things outside of your degree.
So, like, do you have like designated times where you'll study? Like, are you like a morning person or an evening person?
I try to be a morning person.
Okay, yeah.
I'd say, yeah, I do wake up in the morning and do work, but I do feel like the quality of work I produce in the evening is typically better. And then society work usually just fits around that.
Nice. But, yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's interesting to hear. Yeah, everyone does have a different approach to work, and it's very much what works for them. Just for anyone who doesn't know about June events or Mayballs, or the fact that Mayballs don't happen in May, which I think is important to clarify immediately. Can you explain to the viewers of what June events and Mayballs are?
So it's just an end of year celebration. It sort of comes after your exams, and the whole college gets together. You can actually go to ones from other colleges as well. So it is a uni-wide sort of thing, and it's just a massive party. Last year it was so amazing. This year we have some good things lined up. I'm sustainability officer, so I'm just sorting out sort of keeping things green, but I'm privy to sort of what's going on and the headliners that are being booked and etc. So
nice. Yeah. So these are balls that are, it's not like one big university one, but there's multiple ones in each of the colleges, right? And they're all independent of each other?
Yeah, there are multiple ones. Some are typically bigger and more expensive. They also have a range of sort of price ranges. Because our one's smaller, it's a bit cheaper than the typical Mayball. And there were also options if you're on bursary, you can sort of get a reduced price ticket. But it really depends on the college. But as I said, you can go to different Mayballs at different colleges.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, it is. I think, if you think about it directly, it is quite I don't know, it's just one of those things that happens in Cambridge. It's quite, I don't know, traditional, but fun though. I mean, how did you find the June event last year?
It was really fun. It's just really nice sort of getting dressed up with all your friends and then partying late into the night. Yeah, it's a really good experience. Loads of food, loads of drink, loads of performances.
Yeah, especially after you finished all your exams.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with kind of moving from right to the beginning, when you're applying to uni, what universities were you thinking of, and like, were you always thinking of applying to Cambridge?
I think I didn't think of Cambridge a lot until the time to apply came.
Mm.
And to be fair, for most of my other unis, they were sort of London unis because I'm from
Mm.
London. And so I was thinking about staying in the region, but then I feel like once I got the Cambridge offer, it's like, you know, may as well branch out. And I do really, um, I definitely don't regret moving away from home. I think university is a good experience to sort of,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know, gain that independence and live by yourself, make new friends in a new city. And it's such a beautiful city. It's a really nice place to be.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I think different things work for different people, but at least for me personally, I think the experience you get from living independently and moving away from home and going to university where you live at the city is would be a missed opportunity to, at least for me, to stay at home. But and I think there's just so much experience to gain living on your own and having freedom to how to like dictate your days, etc.
Yeah.
Um, were there any concerns with like Cambridge life when you were thinking about applying to Cambridge, or I don't know, did you not really think about it too much?
I think a lot of people have their concerns, especially sort of with the impression that everyone has of
Mm.
Cambridge before coming, that it's very sort of private school
Yeah.
dominated and it might be hard to find your people, and that the workload will be too much. And, you know, but I feel like it's just a matter of acclimatizing in terms of workload. And then people, there's such a vast array of people that you'll definitely find, you know, people that you enjoy spending time with. And yeah.
Nice. And how have you found Trinity Hall?
I love Trinity Hall. Yeah, Trinity Hall's great because I feel like because it's a small college, it's a lot more intimate, so everyone
Mm.
sort of knows everyone, which is good because everyone's friends with everyone, I
Mm.
think, on a sort of base level. And so, yeah, it's a nice college to be at. Everyone's super friendly. The staff are also super friendly.
Nice. Well, I think we've covered everything. Thanks, Kareece, for such an informative podcast on history and modern languages. And thanks for the viewers for watching, whether it's on YouTube or your podcasting platform. We've got more podcasts lined up with students and academics, so we'll see you guys soon. Nice. Oh, how was that?
It's good. Yeah, it was very chill.
Nice,
And
that's
very,
good.
yeah.
Nice.